I think that's the second panel on women, gender, and the family. My name is Ganiat, and I'll be chairing the panel. We have 5 papers in this panel. We have African women, rights, and culture, the effect of patriarchy on the social development of women in Africa. Is to be presented by Bironke Adigun of Taishola University of Education. We have begging under parental supervision, child beggars of foreign nationals, and the enforcement of Child Rights Act in Nigeria, to be presented by Mosumola Oludare and Akinola Akinlolu. We also have gender poverty and kola nut trade in Shagamu City, changes and continuity by Fumilayo Mary Fafumi, University of Lagos. The ties that bind are African marriage culture, to be presented by Ariola Bello of Pan-Africana Strategic and Research Policy Group. And finally, work-life balance of working women by Mariam Eniton Lawrence of Lagos State University. These are 5 presentations in all, but we have just 3 of the presenters available for now. And that is Ibironke Adigun, Ariola Bello, and Mariam Eniton Lawrence. We're going to be starting, and then we'll wait to see whether any of the other 2 presenters will join us in person or online. Each presenter will have 15 minutes, and we'll take the questions immediately, but if they won't respond, so that people won't forget. And then when everyone has presented, go to the questions, and they'll be able to respond to the questions. And they'll be able to respond to the questions. So I think we'll start with the very first person. It's okay, but you should jump from there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like I've been introduced, my name is Adigwe Birunke from Taishola University of Education, Department of History. The title of the paper before me this afternoon is African Women's Rights and Culture, the Effects of Patriarchy on the Social Development of Women in Africa. Very quickly, because of the time allotted to me, I'm going to read through my abstract. Of course, we know that African culture has witnessed tremendous change since the colonial invasions. What that simply means is that in the pre-colonial times, no doubt, women have been involved in performing some roles, though these functions or roles were, it has to do with family matters like cases that has to do with women and children. But with the coming of the European and the introduction of modern way of doing things, I'm trying to say this because of the title I'm working on presently, Women in Judiciary. So in the pre-colonial times, women have been involved. But the cases they were involved in were cases that directly affected women and children. And in some cases, they were involved in crises or cases that has to do with community or communal issues and all. But with the coming of the Europeans, there was a change, because even the European culture too is patriarchal too in in nature. So, and that relegated women to the secondary role in the society. And that has been the situation since then. There is no doubt there is improvement. Women are emerging. We have tribalism women, and I know these women, they are like the mirror through which we see some things, and we know that we have this potential or inbuilt grace in us. So this paper examines the impact of patriarchy on the social development of women. And it's very important to talk about social development. When we talk about social development, it has to do with improving the quality of life of women, making them have access to every other thing that men could have access to. Because if you look at the Constitution of Nigeria, for example, there is no segregation in the Constitution. All the rights are available in the Constitution, they are to be enjoyed by everyone, if you are a male or a female. And these rights are the inalienable rights that are entrenched or embedded in the Constitution. This simply means that these rights are not strange. So also, this paper, through historical analysis and comprehensive review of existing literature and case studies from different African countries, this paper analyzes the multifaceted effects of patriarchy on human rights and social development. And of course, this paper is going to investigate how traditional gender role and stereotypes perpetuate inequality and resist women's choices in education, employment, and decision-making process. Now, very quickly, I'm going to talk about my keywords. I'm going to be talking about the what we call human rights, culture, patriotic, natural justice, and social development. I'm going to be starting with the what we call the women's rights. Women's rights are referred to the fundamental human rights that are guaranteed to women and girls, ensuring their equality and dignity in the society. These rights include, but are not limited to, rights to equality. Women have the right to equal treatment under the law. Now, don't let me, what's it called, for you with that. Let me move to the next keyword. And the next keyword is culture. We all know that culture is the way of life of a group of people. So the definition of culture is more than that. Culture is referred to the shared belief, value, customs, tradition, practices, and behavior that define a particular group of people. Now let's move to the word that I'm going to be discussing the effects today, and that is patriarchy. Patriarchy is a social system in which power and authority are predominantly held by men, and men are typically privileged over women in the society, and that is the truth. But now there are changes, I have no doubt. According to a sociologist, Sylvia Warby, 1990, in his work, Theorizing Patriarchy, he defined patriarchy as a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate, oppress, and exploit women. I'm going to be focusing on all those three words. To dominate means to have power and influence, and I don't think that is part of the rights we're supposed to enjoy as women and men in the country. Also, to oppress, to keep someone in subjection and hardship, especially by the unjust exercise of authority. And the final one I want us to talk about is exploit, to make full use of and derive benefit from a source. So, and also I'm going to be talking about the father of patriarchy and his work, Patriarcha, in person of Sir Robert Fima, and what he said. Of course, he was an English political theorist who defends the divine rights of the king. He's still talking about men, what's it called, dominating the women or the rights of men. Also, we have natural justice. And of course, this has to do with the principles of fairness, equity, and justice. It refers to the idea that individuals should be treated fairly and impartially in all legal and administrative proceedings. Very quickly, I'm going to move to social development. And this refers, like I've said that before, is the process of improving the well-being and quality of life and opportunities available to individuals and communities within a society. The overall objective of this work is to explore the effects of patriarchy on the social development of women. And of course, the methodology, the method I have chosen or that I want to, employ, include, we have so many potential methodologies to be employed in this kind of research. But the ones I'm going to be focusing on is feminist research methodology. And I've tried to choose this, methodology, because through this methodology, I would have the understanding of gender inequality and power dynamics and how they intersect with other social identities. Very quickly, I'm going to move to the next, methodology. That is comparative analysis, because my title is focused on African women's rights and culture. So this will make me compare the experiences of women in different African countries. And now I want to move very quickly. The next thing I'm going to be talking about now is the origin of patriarchy. The term patriarchy originated from an ancient Greek word, which means then when I check this and I'm like, okay, this word is not even our word. It's an ancient Greek word, but with so much, focus on this word, and even from the family, it has even gone to to the society, whereby some functions, some things, we will say a woman does not have power to do this, does not have the strength to do this. And I think some women, we have the power and the strength to do something, except when we talk that we need help. And I think that should be what should be incorporated into the society, and not the issue of dominating, oppressing, or exploiting women. So this word originated from an ancient Greek word, which denotes father's rule. There is no doubt about that, men are supposed to, rule. But bringing the issue of oppression into our day-to-day activities, or the way we relate with ourselves, is what should be taken away. And again, we have a scholar, Leonard Jendal, 1986, in his work, The Creation of Patriarchy. He claims that both men and women have created patriarchy throughout history, and family is the basic unit of the patriarchic organization. And Millet 2016 described patriarchy as a male supremacy over female. Okay. I don't want to disturb because I have limited time, because it's talking about so many scholars that have given their own opinion on the word that I'm discussing. I'm having discussion on. So now I want to look at patriarchy and women's subordination. The term women's subordination indicates the lower position of women in society comparing to men. This work is not making comparison, and that is it. But what this work is talking about is to look at the effects. It's to look at the effects of patriarchy on the social development of women. Because if you look at gender role, men, they belong to public, they can do a lot of things in the public, offices, while women, they are kept in a private life, they attend to family matters and all. I have limited time. Now, let's quickly move to the effects of patriarchy on social development of women. The relationship between patriarchy and social development can be understood as a complex interplay between power dynamics, social institutions, and cultural norms that have shaped society throughout history. Okay, patriarchy is a social system. It's characterized by dominance of men. I have spoken about that. But now let's look at gender role and the effect. Now, patriarchy has played a significant role in shaping traditional gender role, with men being associated with public life, like I said before, decision-making and breadwinning, no doubt. While women have been relegated to private life, caregiving, and domestic work. These roles have been reinforced through social institutions such as family, education, and religion, which have perpetuated the idea that men are superior to women. These have limited women's opportunity for social development, as they have been excluded from participating fully in public life, education, and employment. If you notice what I've been saying, anytime I say anything, I said that there is improvement, but we can still be better. Women can still, can still participate more. Because if you look at, like I was trying to discuss I was trying to ask some people question about this paper. And I said, I used Nigeria as an example, and I know this is going to bring up a lot of reactions. I said, okay, Nigeria will be 64 this year, and we have not gotten female president, but there's no problem. I know you will react, but there's no problem. A 64-year-old man, a 64-year-old woman is a man and a woman of experience. And I know for that 64 years, no woman has emerged as the president. And in other African countries like Malawi, we have what's it called, female president. So basically, let me just, because I have 3 minutes now, the solution to this, I think there should be legal reforms. And when we talk about the legal reforms, we look at the existing laws and we advocate for new laws. And women, I want to say something before I draw the conclusion. I want to say that we should learn our rights in the Nigerian constitution. It is not to compete with the men, but learn about your rights and work accordingly, because the right you have not learned, you cannot live in the reality of that right. How many of us do have what's it called, Nigerian constitution on our phone? There is an app for the Nigerian constitution. How many of us have it on our phones? Women, do we have it? We need to learn about our rights. And again, as regards the culture, patriarchy, anything that has a beginning must surely have an end. And that is what I'm going to say. Thank you everyone for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. That was the presentation on African women's rights and culture, the effect of patriarchy on the social development of women in Africa by the Bureau here at the go of Taishola University of Education. Do we have any questions for her before we go to the next presentation? Okay.
And also contributions.
Okay, so briefly, please.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give a confidence.
Probably we should put chapter 2. Are you comfortable?
No, we will print comment after education.
Let me quit.
Because of time.
Let me quit.
Okay, no problem. There's someone else. Yes, please. Yes, I have question.
My name is Momotala and I'm from Olapisodowanjo University. And my question is on this, there's 2. One is on the legal reforms. I've done a bit of work and sincerely those laws are there. But so the laws are there, but what the problem is the interpretations of the law. It's like Nigeria, something about we ratify all these things, UN or Charter on Women Child, we ratify them. But what I've seen is that is the implementation. Even in judiciary, for example, even in judiciary, say there a lot of women are there. For example, in Ogun State, the CJ is a woman, and there's so many of them there. But it's in politics. It's in that area. It's in the National Assembly. That's where those things, and that's where women are. It's not that those laws are not there.
We have any questions for her? Okay, so we're going to go to the next presenter. The ties that bind our African marriage culture by Ariola Bele of Pan-Africana Strategic and Policy Research Group. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The title of my presentation today is The Ties That Bind Our African Marriage Culture. My name is Ariola Sorabelo. I work with Pan-Africana Strategic and Policy Research Group as a full-time staff, and at the time I submitted my abstract for this. I'm not in academia, so please mind all my excesses. Thank you. So next slide, please.
Sorry, let's thank you.
Next slide. So African marriage culture, institution of marriage, as we all know, we Africans believe that whatever you do, even if we attain the highest of
positions, if you are not married and you don't bear children, it's almost as if you are not successful. That's always been the thinking. So, and the general impression that we always had, at least from social studies classes when I was very young, was that the father was the provider while the mother was the caregiver. But over time, those roles switched. At least COVID-19 was very obvious. When COVID-19 happened, I know a lot of breadwinners that lost their jobs. Even for schools, that we know that predominantly for primary schools, at least I know, we have more female teachers at that level than male. But the schools were running. After a while, they had to go virtual. There was a lot of problems, but we knew that that sector still existed. But for most people, for men that work in the banking industry and other sectors, a lot of them lost their job. And so naturally, the shift in being the caregiver and the provider was interchanged. Next slide, please. And there's that belief that for better or for worse can only work when both parties are willing to work together, manage the situation they find themselves without putting each other at any risk. But I recall that when COVID-19 happened and everybody went on lockdown, we had the highest rate of violence in a lot of marriages across the world that I know. We read it in data. Next slide, please. So the aim of this paper is to look at cases of domestic violence, see how victims can spot the red flags, as well as seek help, support, and assistance, irrespective of the mindsets, to remain in an abusive relationship, as is mostly believed. Yoruba will say iforiti. That's what we call it, perseverance. If you don't have that perseverance, then you are not strong. You are not a good woman, you know. And then someone will say, Nitori Omo, you stay there because of the children, because they need somebody to care for them. So for me, I believe from this, my presentation, marriage should be enjoyed and not endured. Hence, we need to learn that it's not a crime to seek for help when we are at our most vulnerable situations or spaces. Domestic violence is a negative outcome when these ties that bind us together fails. Next slide, please. So I went into types of violence, looked at physical violence, looked at emotional violence. Of course, we know physical violence when the person becomes, a lot of cases start from emotional. You know, the person is insulting, talks back at you, makes some very snide remarks, you know, things that you like you're my partner, you're not supposed to be talking to me. Although I'm centering my own presentation more around women, but we know that in some extreme cases, women also abuse men. But we know more reported cases of men abusing women. So, and then for emotional violence, so for physical violence, the person engages in, you know, hitting, kicking, you know, a lot of physical damage to the person when it gets aggravated. Next slide, please. So, and then I picked a few data, found out that almost 1 in 3 women, 31% of them, aged between 15 to 49, have been physically violated at some point. Now, my concern more is people in marriages. If you look at somebody that is 15, averagely, you won't find a lot of people down south here at that age, maybe up north at that age, but it's common that you have people more in their 20s, maybe late 20s in the southwest. But the data then was that 31% of women between that age bracket had been physically violated. And then domestic violence rose from 60 reported cases in March 2020, which was the year COVID actually happened full-blown, to 238 reported cases in April 2020. So, and then we had that 2020, then 2023, you see the number had also increased in thousands. Next slide, please. So, I don't know, who knows Osinachi, the popular Christian. So, our own case brought a lot of things into limelight. Very popular, she's a Christian, gospel music, and then all of a sudden, and I'm thinking, do we have to wait till that level? And we had reported cases of the children experiencing everything that went on between the parents. Of course, eventually the man killed her. I don't know what has happened to that family, but, and then the other case I just used 2 cases. This other lady, I saw the data online. She was lucky. When it started sometime in 2001. I think somebody reported that her husband was abusive, but she now confronted the husband and said, no, I won't do that. But over time, of course, somebody, you know, in Yoruba, they will say, Efiniwa. You can't hide. Your true character will eventually come up one day, no matter how much you pretend. So after some time, he started harassing the wife. Later, he turned physical. At some point, people advised them. She spoke to the pastor. They spoke to him. The man didn't budge. At some point, she left. She went home. She came back again. They tried to. But, and what data has also shown is that once it starts, it's almost as if it never ends once it starts. So it's always better to not even let it get to that level of being physically abused. When it starts from being emotional or verbal, it's good to, start nipping it in the bud before it gets exaggerated. The woman went back and forth, up until the time where the man almost killed her. That was when she decided that, okay, this no more. So from 2001 to 2012, the man took a sword actually and tried to kill her. She was just lucky that she escaped. The man was charged. But, of course, they started begging, I think they released him, but people were saying it had become a criminal charge. So even if the woman does not press charges, it's been reported already, and that's, the case would take its toll. Go ahead, next slide, please. So I now gave instances of how to spot red flags. So a lot of times, women, most especially, we see those things, but we try to ignore. And I try to tell people that there's no point pretending. When you see those things, try and identify those things and recognize it and find a way to help yourself. So it starts with poor communication. Person is not talking. Most time he's threatening you. He's talking to you negatively. He's easily angered. Any little thing, he gets upset. He can start throwing things. They behave in very, very brutal ways. And as we've seen instances of even women too behaving like that to their husbands, then they get highly critical. There's nothing you can do. Maybe you say, look at my dress. You say, all sorts of remarks, negative remarks, and you're looking at, well, this is the person I'm married now. Why has it suddenly changed overnight? And then the person is overly dependent. He's asking you can't go out. Sometimes they limit, you can't visit your parents. You can't, it's as if it's the one ruling over your life. They want to take control of everything, up to finances. And that's why we even advise people that no matter what, find something you're doing as a woman, especially when you're married. Because we've seen cases that people lost their spouse. So if you are assuming that my husband will take it 100%, it might not work. So if you are about to sit at home, don't work, I'm not sure that's a very good idea. So you should also be very careful. They also try to take control of the situation, I've said that, and then isolate you from families and friends. So when somebody starts saying you cannot go out, you cannot visit your parents, you need to be very careful that why. Next slide, please. So there was this, I saw this in Punch NG online that said there were 5,624 domestic violence cases in 1 year. And there was that reported case that the youngest person who is actually sexually abused is 18 months. That's a baby that's probably just barely learning how to walk. And the eldest was the 79-year-old. So, and I tell people, women and children are the most vulnerable. For some reason, that's the way society has made it. And so we need to protect ourselves. Next slide, please. So solutions. It's good that we acknowledge that, okay, there's a form of abuse. And so some of the solutions, reach out to family people that you can trust. Some family people can be very funny, but you must be sure that this person would, whatever you say, the person won't try to twist the story. The person will be able to back you up. Look at your community leaders as well. Cultural support groups, there are support groups that also help. Fellowships, sometimes we have some other Muslim organizations, NASFAT and the likes. Professional counseling, there are professional counselors that actually tell you that, okay, these are the things you're not doing right, and then put things in proper perspective. Faith-based support, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you can also report to people trusted in your church and most communities. Next slide. Local resources. So let us say, for instance, they have the domestic and sexual violence response team. I don't know if you know that. You also have the child protection network. That's in Ebonyi State. There's a lady, Rashida Mohammed. I got all this online. There's a Mirabel Rape Crisis Center. So there are a lot of resources actually when you search that can actually help you if you are going through such, or anybody who is going through such, you can lead them to such resources. And then finally, I use government because I believe that, well, when we say government, who is government? We are also government. But for me, government is the farthest from we people. So if we want to make any change, it starts from you and I. And You are looking at the next person, your neighbor, your friend, your classmates. So when each of us take it as our duty to be mindful of the next person, you see somebody, you've seen her yesterday, she comes in today, she's all bruised, you're not asking questions. And you see that repeatedly, you know something is happening. So even if you think that person is hiding something, try and see if you can help that person to get out of it. So remember, seeking help is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a sign of strength. So don't let people talk you down when you see those things. Next slide. So conclusion, domestic violence, which can lead to death in extreme cases, can be significantly reduced if all parties are well informed and necessary action is taken to prevent and nip it in the bud when it occurs. Family violence needs to be addressed so that home can be a place to relax, play, and enjoy, spending time with loved ones. Let's stop the generational trauma. So I think on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I believe that we can begin to see it, to see the intersection from Ibironke's presentation on patriarchy and the last presentation on violence, marital violence, so to say. But I'll go to the next one. Okay, I mean, she close to the end, she ended her presentation with a recommendation that women should work. And so we have with us Dr. Lawrence, who will be talking about work-life balance for working women. Please, presentation.
I'll try and find 3 and working translation. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miriam Enito Lawrence from the Department of Industrial Relations and Human Resources, Lagos State University. I'll be presenting the topic, a concept paper though, titled Work-Life Balance of Working Women, Factors and Consequences. The issue of, okay, the slides, please. Slide 4. Introduction. Okay, the issue of work-life balance is challenging for organizations and employees, especially working women. Ever since the invasion of women into the labor force, there has been conflict in balancing work and family life. As a means to balance both, it becomes frustrating for individual women, which may be seen as personal issues after a failed attempt or after so many failed attempts to resolve. Faconda 2014 describes work-life balance as the occurrence of fulfillment in all aspects of life. Work-life balance to individuals vary. An individual may classify work-life balance as being productive at work without having to sacrifice one's joy or health. It may also imply prioritizing one's personal life and having equal or enough time with family and friends. Work-life balance constitutes fulfillment of roles at workplaces and within the family setup. Women's perception of work-life balance differs from a man's understanding of the construct. Since women are faced with greater responsibilities, putting up with domestic activities, even when being professionally driven. Women are no longer confined to the walls of the home, but treading progressively in the world of work. Women now do better in the formal sector and are granted opportunities due to their educational development, skills acquisition, but yet saddled with work-family conflict. After a prolonged day at work, most of these women will return home to continue their domestic chores and other personal activities like childcare, childbearing, washing, cooking, and other societal gender-assigned roles. Hence, the need to harmonize balance becomes a realistic burden to bear. And this begins to affect their productivity at work, their quality of life, quality of work life, job satisfaction, and their mental well-being. The issue of mental well-being begins to affect delivery while at work. Some women do not even feel at ease at work, and sometimes they become absent-minded when the reality of after work crops in, giving rise to criticisms and bullying from other colleagues
In fact, some women are bound by difficulties in developing themselves career-wise. To this end, this study seeks to identify factors affecting the work-life balance of working women and to examine the consequences of work-life imbalance on working women. Conceptual clarifications. Work-life balance constitutes fulfillment of roles at workplaces and within the family setup. Alcatani 2020 describes work-life balance as the balance between an individual's professional and personal life. While working women in this study signifies employed women. What are these factors? In this study, the factors are limited to just 3, which includes caregivers. Who is a caregiver? A caregiver is responsible for rearing, socializing, and taking care of children, dependent adults, aged parents, while performing other roles in cases of family conflict, interests, or events. Women take up multiple roles as breadwinners, caregivers, and workers, depending on the family sphere. The change in economic situation has led men and women to become dual earners in the family. So imagine having multiple roles. It becomes really challenging. That is why it's a factor. It's a factor affecting work-life balance of working women. The second is the societal expectations. The society views women's practice of work life differently due to the cultural and social values of roles and duties expected of male and female. Disintegration between work and family becomes disastrous, leading to financial and personal hardships. Workplace culture is the third factor. Workplace practices and policies that are not flexible, long work hours, will affect support needed by working women in organizations that find themselves. The consequences include stress, fatigue, anxiety, and job burnout. Majority of working women experience a high level of stress, fatigue, and job burnout due to complications from work, environment, and personal life. And even most of these things requires use of energy. Some of these women would have to prioritize their career over family, which oftentimes leads to anxiety and a feeling of guilt. Because in most cases, for example, it happened to me personally when I had a child of about 4 years old and I was working in the bank. I needed to balance work with family in such that for a particular number of times or days, we're always forced to work for long hours, despite the constitution's level on work hard and all. So I would always meet my child at the door, at the entrance of the door when I come back in around 9 p.m. because she was tired, she was stressed because there was nobody to actually take care of her, and I needed to work to support the family. So that put a strain on me because I became so stressed. I was burnt out, and to the extent that I ended up leaving the job at some point. So which means turnover intention. Women are unable to cope with work family conflicts, and then they begin to develop turnover intentions by opting out from organizations with less or no friendly policies. Sometimes they even end up getting self-employed, running their businesses themselves, not because they want to, but because of the unfriendly policies in organizations. The study hinges on the role theory and the boundary theory. The role theory suggests that individuals balance multiple roles. That is the role of an employee, mother, spouse, daughter, and so on and forth. And that conflicts arise when these roles requires incompatible behaviors or time commitment. As an HR professional, it is not possible that you do the same thing at work at home. Your role as a mother differs from the role as an employee and as a mother and as a spouse. So the boundary theory also focuses on the boundaries between work and non-work domains. Women often experience challenges in managing these boundaries due to blurred lines between work and family responsibilities. Summary. In achieving work-life balance of women, many provisions need to be made to reduce the level of stress and frustration women experience. Fair policies on job satisfaction, decrease turnover intention, higher productivity. Fair policies will increase job satisfaction, will decrease turnover intention, will increase productivity, increase commitment to organizations, increase punctuality, thereby decreasing absenteeism and the stress and anxiety level of working women, making these organizations a safe haven, enabling these women to infuse more effort into the organizations and erase work-life imbalances. Recommendation. The study recommends that organizations should offer flexible work hours, telecommuting options, and compressed work weeks. The second recommendation, there will be need for organizations to implement policies such as parental leaves that are when due, childcare assistance, which will alleviate caregiving burdens that women face. The last recommendation is that organizations should promote a supportive and inclusive workplace culture that values work-life balance and respects employees' boundaries to create a more conducive environment for the women to thrive. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. From patriarchy to fighting for the right to also be in the public domain. But being in the public domain and realizing that because of patriarchy, you still have roles to perform at home. And that is what is called the Wollstonecraft dilemma. And so you want to be out there, you want to work with the man, compete with the man. But you do all of that, but you come home while the man is resting, then you have to go to the kitchen. So at the end of the day, women overextend themselves, and having equal space in the public domain does not necessarily mean that women now have a fair game if you still have to come home and be the only one to do all of the work. One of the presenters came in online while she was having her presentation, and that is Mosumola Oludare. She'll be presenting a paper on begging under parental supervision, child beggars of foreign nationals, and the enforcement of the Child Rights Act in Nigeria. Okay, I think we lost her. We still have time. If she comes in while the panel is still on, I'm sure she's going to be able to make her presentation. But I was making a connection between the presentations, and I'll say that this is an advocacy panel. This is an unraveling panel, and it speaks to the realities on the ground. Now, I do not see us bridging the gender gap in the next century. Of course, like someone says, we have policies, but to what extent are the policies implemented is another thing to say. And while we're always clamoring for work-life balance, several studies, including some that have conducted, will show that the reason why men will rise faster and the reason why men will get some roles above women is because employers will look at roles and they'll say, we want somebody who can work very late, who will not go on maternity leave. And so even though this woman is very good, we will not give her the job because at one point or the other, she's going to ask for, my experience this issue was on the experience of women journalists in the Nigerian news media. And at a point, a particular organization that was female friendly, that had a large population of women employees, actually told me that they decided and that for the next 3 or 4 years, they were not employing women. And that was because on some beats, maybe a bit of 5 women or a desk of 5 women, 3 would either be on maternity leave, either pregnant or nursing, and it was affecting their payroll. I mean, so you can imagine. So I'm going to the agreement was to pick the questions immediately after the presentations so that you could lock people's thoughts, and that we're going to respond. So I'm going to allow the first presenter to respond to the comments, after which we'll now take more comments so that the other presenters can also be able to respond. So I'm going to pass the speaker to you so that you can respond to our comments on the implementation of the policy that we recommend, that we recommended policy.
Yes.
And then she commented, well, you really know about the policies that are there, but implementation, I don't know whether you have.
And the implementation, that has to do with the body in charge.
Okay.
There is a body in charge for implementation of any policy.
Yeah, she didn't give us the body that is trying that is supposed to let us know which. Okay, the thing is that there is no single entity responsible for the implementation of all policies. Each individual policy would determine the body that would be required to implement it. I would just like to say something. There was a comment about, I think it was your presentation, where you said a woman had an assault case. Of course, because it's a criminal and not a civil case, I think your presentation was that, okay, the assumption was that it could be, the state could proceed with prosecution, whether she was pushing or not. Yeah, but when people beg and she stops, then I'm sorry, even though in theory it's an offense against the state. If the victim is not coming to witness and all of that, there really won't be any justice. You understand? So, and I think that is actually unfortunate, because I know people who are in the civil society. I know several cases. I have friends where they are willing to provide free legal services, free medical services and all. And they'll tell you, you know what, it is frustrating. When it happens immediately, Nigerians do not keep evidence. And so it's sad where, okay, a girl is raped, they are lucky that maybe she comes running, I mean, it's very fresh. Nobody will take her to the hospital. So they will actually just go to the house and scream. And everybody will come to the front of the house, and everybody will scream. Nobody is recording anything. And when they leave, they will go home, they will remove the clothes, they will take her bath for her. You understand? And it could be so disgusting that they could throw away the clothes, they bring away all the evidence, and they go to bed. And people keep begging, people keep talking. And after a week, where someone comes and says, no, you can't just keep quiet, then that's when you want to start. But by that time, a lot of evidence is lost. Now, that's actually one level. The second level is, even if they tell them, don't worry, it's still not late, we can proceed and all of that, they come. I mean, Nigerians are really not aware of the legal process. So they expect that it's the first day in court that they are going to get. So they have to go to the hospital, and then they don't expect the doctors to ask questions, probing questions. They don't expect the physical examinations. They go to the police and they don't expect the kind of probing questions that they be asked. And then they go to court and it's just hearing, and then it's this, is that. After some months, the lawyers working free would go to this people and tell them, you know what, we're tired. We've given over, let God take control. So, I mean, these are some of the issues. So the issue of implementation is more than a body. It's about the victims, it's about the society.
Good afternoon, everyone. I actually have conducted a research on the area of domestic violence, specifically domestic violence against women in Abeokuta. And from my research, there's also the perspective of victim blaming in our society, that we keep quiet. The first question is, what was she wearing? Why was she on that street? What was she drinking? Why was she hanging out with them? Why did she stay out so late? And so it makes a lot of people keep quiet. They don't want to share those experiences because they know that they'll get blamed. That is number one. Even when they do get up, you can only imagine the trauma of going through domestic violence and then going to report. And then you get to the authorities and they also end up blaming you. Instead of taking your statements, they first of all, in fact, sometimes they traumatize you. You just say, I don't want to go through this. Then also in the process, in the legal process, because I had to interview an NGO, and the NGO said, even when they decide that they will take charge, there's also the family and the societal culture of silence. They will beg, they will beg the woman, and then later they will start threatening. Then later they will ostracize the person. So going through those processes is very, very toxic for the woman. They might just throw in the towel and keep quiet. That is another area. But another area also is the fact that when we now have a bold victim, there's also the problem of the long legal process. It takes so long to prosecute, even when they keep all of those evidences. Maybe when the person is finally overcoming the trauma, maybe after 1 year, there was a lady that specifically told me that she was only just sleeping well at night, and then they now called her to come back to court. to come and give evidence, reliving the trauma that she went through over and over again to a very unbelieving audience. I'll just be looking at that like this. You can read it on that. You can read the room. So these are the issues with domestic violence and all of that. That's my little contribution. Thank you.
It's horrible. It's unfortunate. You don't want to imagine. Yeah, you don't want to imagine what people go through. But we just have to look at it. I mean, it's not about, and it's really because there's so many events.
Yes, wonderful presentation from the second and the third speaker. But I want to correct that word. They are no longer called victims. They are called survivors. Yes, it's survivors, no longer victims. Then you said, the second speaker said something of Ebonyi State, CPN. CPN is domesticated in the 36 states and FCT. Please do your research very well. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Then the third speaker, you talked about women when we come back from work, well, we're tired and all of that, but you didn't talk about the care of our husbands. You know, you have to go to the other room to do your service there. I want you to include that too. Please. Thank you.
Okay, okay, yes, okay, let me just, before you do, before you do, I was going to say that I think, if we're familiar with what LSA stands for, we know that it has to be a safe space, not just to present your research, but to be able to take feedback and to give feedback in ways that do not disempower presenters. So as we're free to comment and all, but let's ensure that we do that without disempowering presenters or making it seem like it's adversarial. Thank you.
Then on the assistive protocol, the chairman of this panel, my senior colleague and learned colleague. It gladdens my heart to be in your midst. Why we have a lot of women in our midst. Thank God the woman was able to say some of her. But honestly speaking, the session is quite interesting, and in which I've learned a lot. I purposely come to this session to learn one or two things. But in the area where I tend to chip in one or two things. Let me start from Madam that presented on work-life balance of working women. So I wouldn't know. I did not want to ask a question, but let me put it this way. I would have loved the title or the topic of the paper and not to look like this, because it seems the title of the paper does not have a scope. So, and we are in academics. So that is first thing I wanted to take note of. So it should have, you have decided to put something, so it should have been more suitable, so that it won't look as if we are just writing. We are writing for public. Who are the audience? Local audience and international audience. So although your title is okay, it is something contemporary that is very good. But at the same time, we need to look at the settings and sectors in which we are. So, secondly, it's a form of question. What are you trying to, let's say, what intervention are you trying to, what are you trying to contribute to the existing scholarship in that particular aspect? Work-life balance of women. So what are you trying to bring up?
Okay, yeah, I think.
So I have somebody else. I'll let her. Okay, the last person is the first presenter. My observation is this. In our title, we are not here to pull anybody down. She's a colleague in the same university, but our title is very okay, but there is when we are talking of title, we have variables, dependent and independent, and they have to go in line with each other. There is a kind of tautology in our title, African women, rights and culture, effect of patriarchy on the social development of women in Africa. You can see, I would have loved if one of the probably women in Africa is being removed. So I think let me submit for now. Thank you for watching.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm going to be allowing the speakers to respond to the queries, but like I would like to state again that number one is the fact that we had a film screening, shows that all presentations at LSA, which is actually not a even core humanities or social science field, cultural studies do not have to follow the rigid structure of journal articles. So they are presentations of the ideas. They do not necessarily have to have the theory, the methods, the sampling procedures and all. And like I said, as much as possible, we try to make our feedback and our comments as sociable as possible so that they do not, it doesn't seem like it's an adversarial interaction. So I'd like to respond to it.
Thank you very much, Ma. Yes, sir. I understood your contribution concerning the topic. But like I said before I began presenting, I said it is a concept paper. Yeah, and secondly, we have stakeholders in our midst. We have people of different status, calibers. We even have HRs in our midst. So the major reason I presented or I wrote that was to, if in case you're probably a stakeholder or something, you could actually aid the intervention of leaves when due. You can actually subscribe to friendly policies as well. So it doesn't have to be just scholarly based. Do you understand, sir? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, yeah, to contribute to what she said, of course, in the field of feminism, there's what is called post-feminism. And what is that? The assumption that, there's equality and that, there's a woman, the woman is a minister, and then every woman has, all the rights and all that. So rethinking work-life balance still shows that, a woman still left her job, had to resign from a type of job. It just shows that these realities have not gone away and that there's no post-feminism in the world, and it isn't in Nigeria as well. So there's an essence for that presentation, and it's very valid. Okay, yeah, so you're supposed to respond to the other comments.
She has noted it.
Do you want to?
Yes, I've noted it. I wrote it down already.
Yeah. Good afternoon once again. As we were speaking, I just had a thought concerning your work, and I feel that now we can also look at globalization and it's the opportunities it offers for work-life balance. You can also explore remote working as one of the avenues that we can create work-life balance for women, as well as some states reviewing their maternity, yes, for instance, Lagos State has like the most friendly maternity leave policy right now, I think, in Nigeria. So we can advocate for more states to be more open like that. Do you understand? So we can just add some way forward kind of thing into the paper so that somebody that picks it will be able to live with one or two things to go on with. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you're not aware, in Lagos State, you have 6 months maternity leave for the first 2 children, and then it goes to 3 months for the extra number of children that you have. In other state governments, it's 3 months, including if you took any time before your delivery, because there are some women who, for some reasons, would have to maybe take 2 or 3 weeks to rest or something like that. And with the federal government is like 4 months, because it's 4 months, a month before and then 3 months after. I think Lagos State has started or will be starting 2 weeks paternity leave as well, so that men can also help with women provide. And yeah, and on that note, I want to say that when it comes to gender sections,
I think we need to begin to have more masculinity, more studies on masculinity. So for instance, the Lagos State, Ministry of Justice released reports, I think last year, and we had very, very high rates, increase in the number of men who actually reported domestic violence. And if you look at the number one, it was high. Number two is significant because men are beginning to come up. And lastly, is that number is actually like a tip of an iceberg, because the average man would not want to report domestic violence. You rest your.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Concerning your work, actually, I think the subtext of your discourse, I would have suggested you try to perspectivize your work within your purview. So, having extrapolated that within your purview, then you'll be able to tell us the gapping imbalance if there is paucity of research field. Understand? So also you'll be able to tell us if so far to the specific rules of your organization, probably your field, on how they can alleviate or exacerbate work-life balance. So it's just because we are not, you understand what I'm saying now? So just try to see how you can holistically perspectivize it actually. So I didn't grasp what you just actually said.
Good evening. Mine, I don't know. I think it's an observation or a suggestion. Observation more. We've talked about the 6 months and the 3 months leave and all. This is sounding strange to me, coming from the private sector. So, because there are women, Nigerian women too, who are in the private sector. They are not enjoying what you just said about Lagos State government giving 6 months, 3 months. It's like heaven in my head. Yes, because I've had 4 kids, let me say 3, and in all coming from the private sector. I know what, like beg, please, I'll soon go and leave. Do. You know, they will make it look like you have to grovel for it. A lot of women are not enjoying this benefit you are saying. So I would really want a situation where there's a comparison, or maybe it's reflected. Who knows? Policymakers may one day decide to tell the private sector, do this on, put it like you must, because we are working in Nigeria. These foreign companies that are privately owned, and then the indigenous companies that are privately owned, we don't enjoy this. Thank you.
I think she raised up. Yeah.
What am I giving it to?
I think, Ekene Euphemia, I think mine is just a comment or a little observation on the first presenter. In the area of our introduction, where she talked about pre-colonial African women and patriarchy. She made us believe that the pre-colonial in pre-colonial era, it was characterized by patriarchy and gender relations, in that the society placed restrictions on women, just like it placed obligations on them. Understand? But oral traditions have actually attested to the significant positions that women have occupied in the socio-political and economic evolutions of our various societies. Understand? Even in the colonial times, the European patriarchal structure also attempted, understand, to invalidate the pre-existing roles of women, and that the dual sex system has attributed to them. But they couldn't because women refused to relinquish that power that the dual sex system has instilled in them. And oftentimes they fought to stand their right. They were not actually subjugated. Understand? And even the patriarchal agents tend to fear women, because women sometimes threaten to turn into agents And when they turn into agents, they do challenge existing power structure. Understand? All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the presenters is back online, so we'll have to go to her now. I hope you are ready for your presentation, Musimola. Hello, are you ready? Okay, can you please go ahead? You have 15 minutes.
Still have to unmute.
Please, can you unmute and share your slides? Have you promoted her to be able to do that? Yes, she's a panelist. Okay, please go ahead and unmute and share your slides. We really don't have so much time. Are you with us? Do we have other people online?
No, there are people online.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, can you hear us, Musumola? You're muted. Can you unmute yourself so you can present?
Can she hear us?
Can you hear us?
She's supposed to hear.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to allow people to make comments while can you please send her a message? Let her know that we want her to present. She needs to unmute. Okay. I'll just say that. Okay. Well, there's so many studies as well that actually show that women were more empowered pre-colonial. So it was actually colonialism that demoted Nigerian women. And before colonialism, they were actually involved not just in domestic affairs, they were involved in international trade and all of that. Someone has a comment behind, yes.
We were discussing, I have two points to make actually. We're discussing on how the private sector gets away with a lot of abuses. For example, while I was working a couple of years back, some colleagues of mine, when they had their maternity leave, they were given 40 days, that is 6 weeks, then to return immediately. When I was having my own baby, I told them it was going to be 3 months, and those 3 months are going to be working days. I'm not going to count the public holidays. And because I knew my rights, I was given the 3 months. And I was expecting that the women that will take on the leave after me will follow suit. I was the exception, let me just say.
And there were other women who were sacked or dismissed every day. And I read about myself where it's okay, we pay you out. But we only get actually going for 3 months to come back and work for us. So when we ask for half people, it's not like that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think she took the words out of my mouth, so I'll just continue for where she stopped. What I want to say is that it's just like a recommendation that women in places of power, especially in Nigeria, let's begin to advocate for each other. While I was working in the private sectors, I had colleagues that gave birth, and because our CEO, our MD is a woman, she didn't give them the leave. We also do this to ourselves. I can count different experiences, especially in the private sector. If you see a woman, I just gave birth, I can only give you maybe a month. After a month, if you don't resume back to work, I'm going to minus it from your salary or I'm going to sack you. So we need to do better, even as women in positions. We need to begin to advocate for each other so that together with that, we'll have a very favorable environment to live in. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few questions to the men in the house. Okay, so number one is when domestic abuse is discussed, do you feel attacked as men? And when you're among yourselves, do you discuss these things? Do you talk to fellow men about not abusing? Or I mean, because I've heard instances of men even encourage you have to be so. You have to prefer, you have to be like that. And then what have you picked? Say you're always interested in coming to sessions like this. What have you picked and how has it impacted your interactions with many women in your lives and your fellow men as well?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I think I used to be the best friend, or let me say the bestie to women. Yeah. The reason why I said this because while growing up, I grew among the females. So, and I used to be around them. And I discovered that there are a lot of things I need to do with the power coming to build the home. I don't have enough time. I have to listen. I said I should be so I might be should be out. And when you matter of fact, the females in our community, in our society, need the support that is expected from men. And we are with it's like funky aspect of it. Whenever there's an issue, don't yell at them. I used to tell my wife confidently, don't by mistake lose me. Because you can never find any man like me. In fact, there was a day in my place of and the staff and one of them said, "Is it the way you are playing with us here? You same way." I didn't argue it. I put a call through to my wife. And before she could say anything, she was laughing over the phone. So before I could even ask any question, I said, people thought I am a pretender, that I play with them outside and I'm another person at home. She was just laughing. You know, she never knew why I called her in the first place. So the laughter simply means that is why I am back at home. I said, that is why. But to God be the glory, my marriage is 15 years old and we are still friends. So thank you, that's my own.
Okay, I was interested. Okay, what? What? I think. Sorry, I was interested in the presentation on begging under parental supervision, but unfortunately we couldn't have it. But I just want to ask the panelists. I mean, all of these issues have been there, and some of us are living and experiencing it now. But the thing is, we have young girls growing up. What are we doing to catch them young, so to speak? So what are we doing to ensure that they have an orientation that would help them to be able to survive a world in which they will still have to struggle and fight for some things? We can go in any order. Sorry, the panelists first and then the else. Yes, I was hoping that one of the panelists would address her, but she couldn't join. So I'm asking, look, this is the world we have.
we are there already. We are still struggling. But we have young girls coming up. I mean, what are the skills? What are we doing to empower them with some skills so that they will be able to better handle the reality before we get better? So I don't know how.
Okay, I think I'll just make 2 points, and that will be the issue of education. Education. We should always ensure that our girl child gets through the um, secondary school, universities, and ensure that they go into learning skills like hairdressing, so many things now, catering services before going into marriages. And for women who are coming up, always ensure that you have something doing at every point in time, even if it's just making hair for 500 naira. A lot of women in, especially the Africans, we can even weave or plait hair without anybody teaching us. From that alone, you can get something doing. Make sure you get something, no matter how small it is, from the little skills that you possess, whether through learning or through observation. To me,
I also noticed that observation, you mentioned that comprehensive. Justify a white thing is important.
yeah, because most African men are still bound by the social cultural norms, of being higher than women, of the woman belonging into the kitchen. No matter the level of education that we are still shaped by the social cultural norms. And if we keep going on and on for generations, we can't change that. Yeah, because by the time you have some sort of skills that you can actually work on, it will help you fetch money. So no matter how much money you are, 500 or 1,000 naira per day, it gives men this level of comfort. Envy. In cases of domestic violence, you have because sometimes you have nowhere to go. That is always the issue. Have anywhere to go. My children are this, my children are that. But if you're thinking about 50,000 naira in a month, even if it's 50, as low as 50, which is so slow, it's so low. But we have schools, primary schools, they call them school abeli in Yoruba. Even if it's just 4,000 naira, they take children there. Even if these lessons that they conduct for students, maybe afternoon lessons and all. Some people don't go to school. We still have them. Only pay for 100 naira lessons, 200 naira lessons. You can still afford that as a mother. And that doesn't mean your children will not do well. They will. But always ensure that you have something just take care to, to paint, to do things like that. It's pretty, no matter how bad it is. It is only getting open house. Nothing to do. There's I don't know if I answered the question.
I am not sure if I got the question, but based on what she has said, in addition to education, I would like to say if I'm privileged, of course, I've been privileged to meet younger ones. Yes, and I've been talking to them. The way I am, I do live a life of purpose. I do tell young girls especially, be valuable. It's very important. Keep adding value to yourself. That will help you to build your confidence. That will help you, to help you to unlock your potentials. A lot of girls, a lot of what's it called? Girl child, let me put it that way. They have this, potential, but when they don't see people to help them unlock these things, they will feel that they are like normal human being, a normal person. I'm sorry to say that. Ordinary person. I have a lady in my school. This lady told me about something about her area. I don't know if some of us are familiar with this area. In Ikorodu Majidu. I don't know if you are familiar. This lady kept on talking to me that, ma, I want to write something about this place. The women there, they don't actually know their rights. The women there, they believe that, okay, the occupation they engage themselves in that area is fishing. They believe that education is not compulsory. As a woman, you just be there, be selling fish, be catching fish, and all of that. That the men are supposed to go to school and do a lot of things. I cannot really, put it together the way she has put it, but she teach that I start to write about it. Let's just stick together. We have actually sat together. We have brought out what it touched on. So in my own way, and again, we the older generation, let me put it that way, we should also live a life that will make this
young generation to look after us. What are we doing as women? This younger generation, they are watching us. It is true that we say that they should be educated. After being educated and they see some discouraging things from, people they could see around them. A lot of these girls, they learn a lot of things from the people they grew up with. Yes. So as you are mentoring the student, and sorry, I said the student, the girl child, ensure that you are conscious of the things you do around them. Ensure that whatever you give to them is valuable. And that is what I'm going to say. I don't know if I actually got the question well. Okay.
So like the other two speakers have spoken, I believe that everybody can make a difference. So let's start. Our homes, our neighbors, schools. For instance, I have kids between the range of 20 something to about 13. So 12, I go to their school, I talk to the students, I try to encourage them and advise them about the way to go, because the world keeps evolving, things keep changing. And so I believe that talking to them and encouraging them will go a long way to help them. Thank you.
Okay, so okay. No, sorry, I started with the panelists. I'm going to try it open.
Yes, I'm done with them. So we have to give numbers now because we're getting close to the end of our panel. I just want to say something, and perhaps anyone can respond to that. Are rich women free of abuse? Yes, because are rich women free of abuse? Yes. No. Yes, because see, a lot of time when people make recommendations, a lot of times, yes, I'm good. No, but I'm good. Well, I just sorry, ladies. I'm going to throw. I think I'll pick numbers. I wanted the panelists to respond to it before it goes. I just want to throw it out there and then we can respond to it, because there are lots of very rich women who buy properties in the name of their husbands, who are forced to let go of property. A lot of women, a lot of very rich, influential women holding high positions are also abused. And I think I just want to, ask whether we agree to that, because it seems to kind of be missing in a lot of the narratives about abuse. I'll take numbers starting from my right. Okay, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. So please take an make that.
I'll just standing or leading on the existing protocol. So I wrote something here. One is raising a gender sensitive generation. And that's so I can't remember. I know somebody said it, that the textbooks, you see father providing, mommy staying at home. And I think that there's a place of education that's raising a gender sensitive. And that's speaking about the future. Like I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. They do the same things at home. The boy has if he's washing plates 1 week, he's sweeping the floor. The next time he rotates. So that if I remember when my son like Obangbale, I said that it's good for him if he learns to sweep now. He will learn to cook. So I guess so that means I'm trying to lead so that it doesn't have that kind of gender stereotype that okay, it's my sister that should cook, it's my sister that should type. So that it doesn't really, it begins to see the sister like they are equal, they can do everything. And when we have a girl, and when a girl sees that okay, I'm washing plates, my brother is washing plates, she doesn't see that oh, this thing is this, so they grow up. So for me, I believe that education, raising gender sensitive, letting them know that if you are a girl, your opportunity should do, and it starts a lot from the home, because the first contact is in the home. I did a lot on domestic violence, and I've talked to people when they have a son. I'm sure some of us can remember that MTN advert that was say, Mama, it is a boy. We so much we place, we call our sons Akomi. We place so much so that the girl grows up in the home and feel like she's less. But when we have that kind of balance, letting them know, a girl don't say, oh, this is what it. Just let them know, let them do it. Brain intelligence does not know gender. Intelligence it's not gender sensitive. So there are gender roles. There are things that okay, like procreation, but intelligence getting the best from life. We all know, look at Okoje now, where she is. I mean, I'm just citing that. So we can let them know, be mentoring them and letting them know, raising them from the home. Gender does not have, brain does not know gender. High standard does it. There's nothing about it's not gendered. Thank you so much.
Standing on existing protocol. Aside from raising gender sensitive children, I don't have a child yet, but while I was growing up, I had my experiences. And I want to say that as parents, let's learn to be friends with our female children. My mother was not my friend when I was growing up. It was after university that she became my friend. She was not my friend. So African mothers are grown up with this mentality that when your female child has a boy as a friend, you start instilling fear that she's going to get pregnant, and then you begin to you are harsh towards the child. Any small thing, you verbally abuse the child, you beat the child, you do all sorts of things, you push your child outside. And if we are working in academic settings, you see a lot of things. You see that these children, they don't have love at home. So once they see freedom in the university, they begin to misbehave. Now, every woman is prone to abuse, according to the second question. It just takes, as women, we need to be sensitive. Like when we have the education, not just normal education, financial education. It's not because you want to be richer than your husband, or you don't want to buy a property in your husband. If I get married, I won't buy a property in my husband's name. It's not because I'm educated or I'm a lecturer. No, I will buy a property in my median's name, because that is my name. You don't buy a property with your husband and say Mr. and Mrs. No, Mr. and Mrs. is not defined in the law. These are the things that we are saying, that women need to know what the law says. Mr. and Mrs. is not defined in the law. If you are going to have Mr. and Mrs. Ikuche Kiniko, your name is your husband's name. So when the kids are down, the courts know what to do. But most of our women, when say it's my husband, you just no. You have education, but that education is not enough. These are things we need to learn. You understand? So thank you. Number 3.
Not the right place.
The question you asked about rich women not being abused, I don't think I agree with. It's everybody, whether you're rich, you're poor. I think sometimes abuse a question. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So for me, abuse does not, you can't define it whether it happens to somebody who is rich, somebody who is poor. I just believe that sometimes we don't have the information that will help us decipher that this is abuse. Or sometimes we tend to just downplay it or look away based on the way we've been raised or the way we've been socialized, that, accept it. Maybe because you are married, so you have to remain in the marriage. So, but for me, I believe that if it's affecting your life, if your life is at risk, it's not the best. It's best to seek help and find a way around it. Thank you.
I agree with education on raising the female child, because education is both formal and informal. So I have a lot to say, but I'll try to summarize it. On the fishing community generally, and I think as we do a lot of case studies, they've been understudied. Sometimes we think education is about going to school and everything. If people have choices, sometimes they weigh the option of, when they go to school, what do they become? I want to be a fisherwoman, for example. But in school, everybody, there is this outside their own culture. I'm talking about the Eguan, maybe the job people, is men that do those fishing. And the thing is that we've not really integrated the African perspective of learning into our curriculum. So until we can tell them, okay, you can go to school and still be a fisherwoman, but you will do it in a modern way and be earning more, you will not convince such a woman, because she's seen everybody going to school, becoming a doctor, a teacher, and everything, but she doesn't want to be that. So sometimes it's the way we approach this topic. First of all, put ourselves in their place, ask them the right question and not judge them. Then is when we can entice them to education. But I haven't worked in the primary school and the secondary school for a couple of years. I'll tell you that the curriculum has been broadened to preach on sex education. And now even children in the nursery school are taught the concept of your private parts. and you will yet even them telling their colleague, don't touch me, it's my private part. You have to tell them that no, not that type of touching we are talking about. So then I remember in secondary school I have to teach okay, I'm trying to summarize everything. When I trying to teach child abuse, so I have to teach the teenage girls in the SS class what to do when they find themselves if they are raped. Because I know it's not broadly stated in the curriculum. So I told them, first of all, you run to a hospital. You see a doctor for medical treatment. Because one, they'll be able to prevent STI, collect sample, then there'll be a record of the rape. Or your parent is you can even if your parent is the first person that will rescue you, you have to tell them that this is what your teacher told you. Because most of the time we know these abuses, but we don't know how to respond to them. So it's this response we need to include in our curriculum. Also, the idea of who is more in pain, because we do a lot of classism when it comes to feminism, so that we are not able to integrate the rich woman and the poor woman. So everything has to do with self-esteem. In a high quality, in the colonial era, not even colonial era, even to the 60s, our grandmothers were more empowered than we now. Why do they say so? They don't fight for custody with men when it comes to divorce. They weigh their option. Can I take care of these children? No. Stay with your father. Let me go and empower myself, then come back for you. Now, the woman is poor. She's already thinking, how can I leave this situation? I cannot afford to take care of these children. She will endure that abuse. So we should be building responsible men. Make men know that they're also responsible for the children. The women are not the only ones that should have full custody of children. Thank you.
Is that follow-up? Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick one because of time. I'd like to just add this few voices. Let's build confidence in our girl child. Secondly, I want to say, know yourself, your worth, and stay focused on your dream. Don't leave the shadow of yourself. If you are not you, who will be you? So please live your dream. Thank you.
Again, I want to recognize our presenters, the bureaucrat, the go of time.
Okay, very quickly. I just want to add something short to building on the existing protocol. I just want to add something short to what we're saying about the children. I studied Islamic studies in my undergraduate, and during that I could remember there is one thing they talk about, the prophetic tradition that says, in raising our children from age 1 to 7, be their friend, be free with them, do anything with them, let them be free with you, so that they can be able to tell you anything. From age 7 to 14, that is the period that you can catch them, you can train them, give them any training that you want to give them, because that is that time you can prepare them for life. I mean, for the reality of upcoming life. Then from age 14 upward again, you will have to be their friend again. So I think we need to know how to balance these things, because there's already like a paradigm shift in what we're having now. The way our mothers train us, we cannot train our children like that. It's not possible, because we are now in the era of social media, and we know that our children, by the time I was growing up, I don't know all these things. Now the children even know it better than me. So we need to observe our surroundings, then know the kind of education we are supposed to give to them. And on the issue of the second one about the rich women and the likes, like she said, self-esteem is another thing that we need to build, because a lot of women will be like, they want to cry under limousine.
Okay, can the presenter stand up? Let's okay. And then I want us to give them what is called a rain card. Sorry, a rain card. It starts with a drizzle. Next is drizzling. It's drizzling. It's beginning to look like it's going to, it's a drizzling. And then you get the first answer. Very much. Thank you very, very much for being a part of this section. Thank you for your hard work that you put into this. I would just like to say that as we leave this session, it's been very interesting. It's very, very easy to talk. It is very, very easy to show. So as you leave, I just want you to ponder on what you need to do. That is the game changer. That is what this made a difference So all the things that we talked about. Thank you for being a part of this panel, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference.